hello, welcome back to another What Am I Playing? It's been a while. Mainly a case of being too lazy or too busy, or basically uninspired with my builds. But this time around I'm bringing you my favorite build to this date. And I know I say that every league, but this really is my favorite build. Super comfy, super chill, just the way I liked. And it can kill uber bosses, so that's a cherry on top of that cake. The build in question is Blade Trap Trickster. Basically, we're using Ephemeral's Edge and stacking a bunch of ES to get decent amount of damage and defenses. Blade Trap is chosen just from the fact that you don't need any attack speed to make this build work, and so we can just concentrate on getting as much ES as we can for the damage and evasion as our second layer, which synergizes really well with Trickster Ascendancy. So leveling, as I've stated before, I like leveling with the same skills I'm gonna be playing in Endgame, so in this case I picked up Blade Trap at level 12. Now I wouldn't recommend it as you constantly need to upgrade your weapon till you can use Ephemeral's Edge, which is at level 32. At this point I recommend also picking up Ghost Wraith body armor, as this will carry leveling till maps or even further if you play on League Start, as well as if you choose to play this as a hybrid build. This body armor really will carry you far. Also in League Start, the gear is pretty scarce, so I wouldn't go CI quite as early as I did because I did it at like level 40. But this chest piece plus Ephemeral's Edge, and you don't even have to worry about any other gear. Plenty for white maps. Also, if you do switch to CI, I mean 6-7k energy shield is plenty for white maps together with Trickster Ascendancy, if you get your spell suppression capped and all that good jazz. Final skill tree for me looks something like this. I was hoping to get this character to level 100 because honestly it deserves it, but I just got too distracted from doing safe maps with some uber bosses and occasional death occurs, as is the way of softcore. There are some tweaks I would do if I'd play this build again, which may as well happen next league, but for what I have going on right now I'm pretty pleased with it. Ascendancies I picked are as follows: Escape Artist, Spellbreaker, One Step Ahead, and Swift Killer. Alright, let's talk about gear. This is where it becomes a little bit tricky. So we have some really generic pieces, which is Ephemeral's Edge, super easy to get, and Syntrex, also super easy to get. Mine are pretty freaking well rolled, but you can start with super cheap pair, and they are just the perfect boots for this build. Synergizes really well with masteries we're picking up, with the Ascendancy itself, beautiful, almost irreplaceable. Now when it comes to other pieces of gear, there are some really simple ones, like my gloves, just a bunch of energy shield. I made these myself. I bought a Fractured Intelligence and rolled it with defense fossils, until I hit something decent. That's very simple. Same goes for my shield. Again, I think I bought this one for not that expensive. Just a bunch of energy shield. That's what we're going for. Just to make it simple. This is nothing fancy. You can for sure get something fancier, but why? This works perfectly fine. Our helm. The most expensive part of this is the Blade Trap rotates +1 times, and that wasn't even that expensive. Just a decently well-rolled Hubris Circlet will do with the enchant. So these pieces, not very... I mean, here, this guy... maybe a bit expensive, but you really don't need the intelligence. That's just for min-max purposes. My previous gloves didn't have any intelligence, just a well-rolled pair of gloves, shield, and helm. Really easy part. Now, this is where it becomes a bit tricky, because how do you price a chest piece like this? I bought it myself with the chance to suppress spell damage fracture, which was very cheap because it's a tier 4 roll, and that's literally what we need for capping spell suppression on this build. The rest, I got really lucky, because I rolled it with defense fossils. So, this kind of body armor on this build is just insane. It's almost like, 2k evasion, and ends up being like 800 energy shield. That's like a okay energy shield body armor by itself. So, this body armor is really important for this build. You can get better ones, obviously, but this is just... super good. I got really lucky. And because we had a free prefix, I could even patch some holes into our defenses, which is physical damage mitigation, and convert some of it to elemental damage, which is pretty good. So then jewelry is what's left. So these guys are mirror jewelry. Now, I wouldn't put too much stock into these because we won't be able to get them next league. So if you're wanting to play this build, omit this. I mean, it's just basically what it has is a bunch of intelligence and a bunch of energy shield. You can get very well-rolled non-mirrored item. Maybe it makes it even easier to cap your resistances. The beauty here was that it was minus maximum life and minus chaos res, which made it really cheap because those are the things that a lot of people would want to get. So this one was pretty cheap. Other than that, this guy, just a mediocre ring, really okay ring. Amulet's pretty good, but again, it's just a well-rolled rare amulet. Just a well-rolled rare amulet, well-rolled ring, rare ring. Nothing super special about these, like just patching my stats, getting some crit multi, we're getting energy shield, that's damage for us, so these weren't very expensive. Now we do need to craft this minus total mana cost to bring the mana cost of our blade trap. Where's the blade trap? There we go. Blade trap down, and currently my blade trap is only costing 3 mana, so this is very important for sustain. There are probably ways you could tweak this a bit more, but this was pretty good for me. And then the last part, our belt. I chose to go for Crusader belt. You don't have to. The only reason I decided to do it was because you can roll some things that synergizes well with like faster start of energy shield recharge or energy shield recovery, one of those mods. I don't have it on my belt, as you can see, because I was rolling this with intelligence essences. Intelligence is not a naturally occurring mod on belts. I just rolled and hoped I hit something good. You can buy a better belt than this, probably, or roll a better belt than this. I mean, the intelligence stat is just for min-max purposes, honestly. It's not necessary. You could get a better belt. But this was good enough, and I didn't see a reason to either remake it or buy a better one. I was pretty pleased with what I got. As you can see, it's not actually anything outrageous. There's the only piece that seems could be quite expensive is this chest piece. I just got lucky. I never look up prices, so other things that might be a bit expensive is bottled faith, but it's not necessary for this build. All the rest of them are just normal flasks, patching my defenses even more. Now, the other things that are a bit more expensive, maybe, we have our jewels. I have a pair of Forbidden Flesh and Flame that gives me Pyromaniac, and that is very good for Zealot's Oath. We get a bunch of regen. If you were to play this in solo self, obviously you would not have these jewels, or very unlikely that you have them. So just some normal jewels will do, with some crit multi, crit chance, or energy shield, all the good stuff. And then we have a Watcher's Eye with crit strike multi affected by precision, and maximum mana as extra maximum energy shield affected by clarity. Now this one is also a bit pricey, depends on the point in league you're playing this. This might be a bit pricey. Same with these Flesh and Flame jewels. I mean, this is just a min-max. This is endgame min-max setup. You would obviously not have these at the beginning. So let's move on to skills. Our 6th link is Blade Trap, Divergent Inspiration to lower our mana cost even more, Swift Assembly, Trap and Mind Damage, Awaken Lightning Penetration Support. If you were to play this build as Inquisitor, you would have a different support here. Inquisitor is also a very good option for this build. And Charge Trap supports, lets us sustain our power, and Frenzy Charge is super easy, really nice. Then for our auras, we have Grace, with Enlighten. Enlighten 3 for my build was perfectly sufficient, so not super expensive there. Divergent Summon Skitterbots, a bit pricey, but I mean, I only got them at the end. Just to min-max purposes. Normal Skitterbots is perfectly fine too. And just Divergent Wall Discipline. I mean, Divergent I just got because I could. Then we have still Precision, another level 3 Enlighten, because there's plenty, and Clarity. Clarity, mainly we have to sustain our super cheap Blade Trap and to get that Watcher's Eye mod. Then for our debuffs, Bear Trap, with Culling Strike, and increased duration. And we have an anomalous steel skin. Now this is only for one specific reason I have this steel skin. You wouldn't normally use it, and that is just so I can... It's not necessary, but this is just because I'm tanking Uber Cyrus Meteors. So otherwise, that just would be an empty socket or something you would put something else inside there. But that's the only reason I have the steel skin here. Then we have Flame Dash with Enduring Cry and Urgent Orders for Enduring Cry. As again, Enduring Cry we just have for specific points when we need some bit more mitigation. For some bosses, normally in maps I don't even use this. I mean, again, Regen helps us with our energy shield. I'm not using this consistently, but this is another way to get some physical damage mitigation. And last but not least, we have Assassin's Mark with Arcanist Brand and Wave of Conviction with Arcanist Brand, both of these. Now, if you were to min-max your glove implicits to get 15% exposure, you wouldn't use Wave of Conviction. It's only for single target just to min-max the damage. Normally, I don't even use Arcanist Brand in mapping, because what's the point? Everything dies perfectly fine without it, but just for single target, that's a little min-max. And then our last, increased duration. So for our Assassin's Mark, Wave of Conviction, all of those together, just a little debuff thingy. If I really wanted to min-max my DPS on single target, I could always get Anomalous Signal Prey, which comes from Predator support. What it does is debuffs apply negative to all resistance. That includes also chaos resistance, but in this case, just another way to lower the enemy resistance a little bit more. So I have this free link, I would put Signal Prey here. That is the gear and skill portion of the video done. Let's move on to Endgame. So what can this build do? I mean, it can do everything, right? It's really chill mapping. You really don't have to worry about any mods. The only mod I was rerolling on this build was no regen, just so I didn't have to worry about my mana sustain. Other than that, I'm just chilling with every mod. Now, the biggest weakness of this build is physical damage. I also haven't got Corrupt Blood immunity on this build, so I have tried to patch it with Pantheons like Soul of Ralakesh. If you can get Corrupting Blood immunity, perfect. That's really what you want to do. It would make a big difference. If you can't, there is only one source of Corrupting Blood / bleed that has ever made me question my choices of not getting Corrupting Blood immunity, and that is Uber Cyrus. Uber Cyrus is the only place where I actually had to get a Corrupting Blood immunity on one of my flasks when I was doing it. In this case, I only got a magic life flask with tier 1 immunity to Corrupting Blood if you use it while you have Corrupting Blood. And that is perfectly enough. You enchant it with Harvest for getting more charges. Work like a charm. Because you only have to use it when you have the Corrupting Blood, and it's only past like 3 stacks in that fight, considering that we have very little mitigation for Corrupting Blood / physical damage. This is also a good place to use your Enduring Cry. But yeah, so that is the only place where Corrupting Blood made any kind of impact on the playstyle of this build. Other than that, you can play the altar game to the max. Stacking 5-6 altars barely makes any difference. The only reason this character is not level 100 is because I was doing Uber bosses, and sometimes things happen in Uber bosses where you don't play perfectly and boom, you're dead. Again, this is one of my favorite builds. I've killed most Uber bosses than any other league on this character just because how chill it is. It's not the most amazing DPS, I have to say, but it is plenty of DPS. Overall, if you like traps, I would wholeheartedly recommend this build, and I might even break my play a new build every league rule if nothing changes. I've just fallen in love with Trickster and CI, so maybe if I don't play Blade Trap, I'll be playing some Trickster or CI. That's all for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed and see you next time. Bye, bye, bye.